What's good, everybody? As you know, everyone is out here making training calisthenics complicated as fuck with all those tricks, tips, crazy routines and all of that bullshit. But it's actually really simple. And you may tell yourself that you need to train for hours every day to make some progress, or that you have a hectic schedule so you can't really train, or that you need good genetics, or even that calisthenics doesn't build muscle or any strength. That's all bullshit, alright? You see, I started calisthenics with no prior background, while studying full-time and running my business, and also with genetics that make putting on muscle a pain in the ass, and definitely without training more than 3 hours per week. And fast forward 2.5 years-ish, I've built a physique I was only dreaming of at the beginning, and have unlocked the skills that once looked impossible on Instagram, like the front lever pull-ups, the front lever touch, the no dip muscle-ups, and also the handstand push-ups. And to be honest, my clients have unlocked some pretty crazy results as well, going from 5 dips to 7 20 kg dips in the span of 4 months, and also going from barely doing a single pull-up to cracking L-sit pull-ups in 3 months. So I think I could confidently say that I know what I'm talking about. Most people are failing not because they're not training enough, but because they don't have the right knowledge and they try solving it following some cookie-cutter influencer routines, or simply because they're telling themselves that they don't have the time to train. So we're going to take all that shit, throw it out the window, and I'll show you exactly how to build an aesthetic physique and a good base of strength for calisthenics, without burning out and without wasting years on trial and error. I hope you didn't click on this video expecting some basic YouTube tutorial. This is a full blueprint, the basics, all the foundational principles you need to understand to get into calisthenics, the methodologies behind training, and finally I'll walk you through the exact structure I used when starting out. And as a bonus at the end, I'll give you my 3-month plan for free. And I'm doing this because I wasted my first year experimenting, failing and learning things the hard way, so I'm on a mission to create the best calisthenics content and sharing all the gate-kept calisthenics info, making it accessible to everyone. So if you've got a busy schedule, this video is for you. Now let's move on to the results, guys. Now, like I told you, I'm going to divide this video into 4 parts. We're going to quickly go over the basics of training, then we'll go over the foundational concepts you need to understand before getting into calisthenics. Then we'll go over the methodologies and the programming, and finally I'll go over the way I structure my program so you can understand and copy me. Now, first of all, I believe you already know there's a lot of different disciplines, a lot of different types of training in calisthenics, with the main ones being skill training, strength and weighted, endurance and balance. And which one you pick dictates everything else. It dictates the way you train, the way you structure everything. So that's the reason why it's very important to actually pick and choose which path you want to pursue at the beginning of your journey, because like that you'll know what you want to do. And for each one, to begin with, it's very important, you need to have a good base of strength. And that's what we'll be covering in today's video, so stay tuned. Now, as you can see, this is skills, this is weighted calisthenics. And by the way, this is my boy Mike, my client, doing weighted dips. This is endurance, so mainly push-ups, dips and all of that bullshit. I mean, it's not bullshit, but come on, endurance. And balance. Now, let's move on to the main exercises. Before we dive in, I'm not gonna go over all of the super foundational knowledge and stuff, like the exercises, the technique, and talk about push-ups, pull-ups, dips and all of that, because there's no point. Now, if you're completely new to calisthenics, just feel free to watch the video until the end, but get familiar with the basic stuff. Now, to begin your calisthenics journey, you first need a good base of pushing and pulling strength, stability, which is mainly through your core, because core is the foundation of calisthenics, and coordination and body adaptation. That comes from a good level of pull-ups, dips, and core exercises like the leg raises, and specific work for your body adaptation. And by specific work, I mean working specifically for the goals that you have in mind. So if you want to learn the L-sit, you won't be doing fucking crunches. Now, if you're either aiming for only building your physique, so only going for aesthetics, or going for strength or endurance, you should simply stick with the basics. If you want to get into skills, you need to add a few more specific exercises to your foundational training. So stuff like pike push-ups, because only doing dips won't help you with the handstand push-ups. But if you want to learn the handstand push-ups, pike push-ups is your best friend. And there's a lot more to it, but we can't cover everything in this video. Now, let's move on to the foundational principles you need to understand. First principle, calisthenics isn't gym. So you can't expect, if you were going to the gym before, you can't expect training the same way like you did in the gym, because weightlifting is completely, not opposite, but completely different to the calisthenics type of training, because you cannot isolate muscles like you can in the gym. So for example, my bad. So for example, doing push-pull leg splits is not the way to go, because doing 5 exercises for push in one workout won't suit calisthenics. Because imagine doing diamond push-ups, push-ups and dips in one workout. I mean, you're targeting the same muscle groups. So you can't do that like you do in the gym. And now, one very important thing, calisthenics will not build your bulky type of physique. So if you want the gym type of physique, then calisthenics isn't really the way to go. But if you're aiming for aesthetics, lean aesthetics, and also being athletic and functional, calisthenics is your way to go. Which leads us to point number 2, define your goals early on. I said that before, I'll say it again because it's very important. The earlier on you decide which path you want to pursue, whether it's skills, whether it's weights, whether it's endurance, it doesn't matter. It gives you clarity from the start. So the goal you choose will define the way you train. And this will save you so many weeks or even months in progress if you know what you're doing since the beginning. But the mistake I've seen so many people make is choosing one goal in the beginning, but then subconsciously training for another. And that's what slows them down by a lot. So now I'm going to go over the training principles you need to understand based on each goal of yours. However, I'm not going to cover the balance type of training because first of all, getting into balance training in the beginning isn't the best way to go about it because balance doesn't really build strength. And second of all, I'm specializing in everything but balance and endurance. So yeah, let's move on. Physique priority. If your physique is your priority, then you should be focusing on hypertrophy. So following the 8 to 12 rep range on each set. So if you can't do, for example, 8 pull-ups, then you will do them band assisted so you can get that rep range. And like that, you'll just build your way up. Second thing is, training to failure is your best friend. Now, depending on your body and on your recovery, you can train to failure in 2 different ways. First of all, is train to close to failure, so 95%, let's say, on each set. And the second way is just having one workout per week where you go even past failure brutally. The third thing is weighted calisthenics. Weighted calisthenics is the best thing to do if your physique is your priority because the progressive overload of adding weight to your training is very similar to gym training. And the last thing is rest times. You'll be resting between 1.5 and 3 minutes between sets. Number 2, skill priority. If skills are your priority, the first thing you need to understand when getting into calisthenics is intensity. Now, intensity is very simple. It's the opposite of volume. Intensity means doing the hardest progression of an exercise or of a skill for a short period of time, so between 3 and 10 seconds. Personally, I would recommend between 3 and 7 because 10 slightly gets into the volume, but you need to do at least 3 seconds because otherwise your body can't really adapt if it's less than 3 seconds. The second thing is rest times. You need to be resting between 3 and 5 minutes between each set, simply because you need to be fresh and you need to be ready to go all in on each set because strength is your number 1 priority. Which leads us to training style number 3, and this is for strength. Now, if your strength is your priority, you will be training pretty much the same as skills. But the only thing is you will be doing the 1 rep max, not doing at least 3 seconds or 3 reps, but you may be doing the 1 rep max as well, and going all the way up to 6 or 7 reps per set. And the most important thing is you would start adding weights early on, and everything else remains the same. Which leads us to training style number 4, and this is endurance. Now, if you want to up your endurance or your cardio, this is the way to go, and it's actually really simple. The only thing that you should be doing is sticking to higher rep ranges, so more than 15 per set, and doing lower rest times, so you can actually build up that endurance. No more than 90 seconds of rest times between your sets, and that's it. Now, let's move on to the third principle. Frequency is your best friend, and by frequency, I mean doing as many sets of an exercise as you can per week. And this is the best way to build muscle, to both build muscle, and build strength and skills as well. Of course, you shouldn't be doing to the point that you're overtraining, but your body and your central nervous system adapts the best to a certain position, so a certain skill, a certain movement, exercise, etc., by frequently exposing yourself instead of rarely, brutally beating your body up so you can adapt to that skill. So frequency beats brutality. Principle number 4, don't be scared of the bad form. If you just unlock your first, let's say the pull-up, the form might be a 4 out of 10, a 5 out of 10, so slightly keeping, your knees are bent and so on. But you actually need the bad form to get to the good form, so don't be scared of starting a certain skill or an exercise at a 4 out of 10 form. However, a very big mistake I see anywhere from beginners to even more advanced athletes making, they're doing the reps like they're a bodybuilder. So not only they're fucking up their form, but they're fucking up their activation, which can slow down their progress by months. Because after a few months, they realize that they haven't activated correctly a particular muscle. So that slows them down forever. So I want you to be cautious and I want you to analyze your body always. Principle number 5. Last one, but absolutely not least, there is no right way to train. Every single influencer, guru, online calisthenics coach, including me, will tell you about why their method is the best and why you should follow them. However, the truth is, Everyone is different, everybody's body is different. Of course, there are principles you need to follow because they are biomechanical laws and all of that, but your body may respond in a different way than my body responds to it. So I want you to only stick to the main principles and the biomechanical laws, but only change the programming depending on your body, your recovery, and all of that good jazz. And by the way, guys, if you're finding this video valuable, which I know you are, go ahead and drop me a follow because it really helps Ton put out the best content for you each and every time. Now, let's move on to the methodologies and the programming. However, before we dive into everything, I want to mention one last thing. All of those principles that we went over just a minute ago, they stay the same. What changes is how you apply them based on recovery, based on stress and weak links. So here are the different methodologies, and then we'll dive a bit deeper into why upper-lower split is superior. First of all, the push-pull leg split I told you about, it's not the best way to go about it because it's calisthenics, it's not the gym. So doing a push day where you're doing push-ups, dips, pike push-ups, diamond push-ups, and all of that in one single workout, you're just killing your recovery and your energy because all of those exercises train similar muscle groups. Or for example, the famous two-set method that you've heard of. Bro, nice. I'm not here to shit on it, but I'm here to point out the flaws so you're aware of them. So in this case, doing only 2 sets of 2 exercises weekly is too low per muscle group. As you can guess, because we spoke about that frequency is the best way to both build strength and build muscle. And that way, that method revolves only around brutality. And also, you're not even training every muscle group that you need because you only have 3 workouts of push, pull, and legs. So you're missing out on the core and other muscle groups as well. However, the upper-lower split checks all the boxes. And after testing in the beginning, like at least 5 different methodologies, different programmings of working out, upper-lower split has brought me the biggest and fastest gains. So the way of doing upper-lower split in calisthenics is 1 exercise per muscle group per workout. So that equals a good recovery. It also only takes 45 minutes per workout, which is amazing. However, all of that I'm talking about is not the regular upper-lower split. I slightly tweaked it so it best suits calisthenics and your goals. So I made it 3 upper days and 1 lower day because why train legs? Now I'm just kidding, but if you want to focus on aesthetics, you can train legs twice a week. But personally with calisthenics, I found that the calisthenics way of training legs is too intense, so you don't need to train twice per week. But be aware that if you want big legs, calisthenics isn't the way to go. You will have shredded legs, but not huge like with the fitness. Now, before we move on to the details and the way I personally structure my upper-lower splits, all of this I told you about may look simple on paper, but I've seen a lot of areas where busy guys mess this up, and it's stuff like exercise order, structure, rushing progress, and not really knowing when to push harder or deload. So my advice to you is don't just go on autopilot. I want you to actively think, analyze, and strive to be better. Now let's move on to the way I train the upper-lower split. Now don't mind this because I've just asked ChatGPT to compress it and make it shorter for you guys. So the way I train it is pretty simple. All it takes me is 3 hours a week with 4 workouts of 45 minutes. So yeah, that's it. Goddamn, my brackets are shit, but anyways. Now here we get onto the split. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday are upper body workouts, and Saturday is the lower body, plus optional upper, but we'll get to that in a bit. So the upper workouts, they consist of 1 pushing, 1 pulling, and 1 core exercise every time. Now for each exercise, you do 3 sets per exercise, as this is pretty much the sweet spot, as you're getting enough frequency, but you're not going into too much volume, so you can train intensity on each set and be strong for each consecutive set. So, like I said, optimal frequency, optimal recovery, and 3 sets is pretty much the best way to go about it. Now, on Mondays and Fridays, they're the same. This is the upper body workout. You're doing 3 sets of pull-ups, 3 sets of dips, and 3 sets of hanging leg raises. The reason those exercises is because on Mondays and Fridays, I put the most important exercises. On Wednesdays, I do chin-ups, so to target my biceps. Because if I do only pull-ups, I'll just tire myself. And then I did pike push-ups because I want to learn the handstand push-ups, which I then gave up. But yeah, pike push-ups and then leg raises, hang leg raises again for 3 sets. And on Saturdays, finally, is the leg day. Pistol squats, 2 sets of pistol squats and 2 sets of shrimp squats. By the way, I'm sorry if my voice is kind of different, but I'm sick as hell today. I just want to get the video out for you guys. So, the reason why we do 4 sets total of legs, because legs, they're the biggest muscle in your body, the biggest muscle group. So in the beginning, I didn't do pistol squats because I couldn't do them. So I was doing assisted pistol squats, holding on to an object. And then, once I got better, I started doing 2 sets of pistol squats. And I was also doing shrimp squats because they're kind of easier, so I can do more reps and get more of that pump. So I train both for hypertrophy and for strength as well. So personally, you can tweak it the way you want. You can train like twice a week. It really depends on you. But for calisthenics, 3 times per week of training your upper body is the best way to go about it. Now, this only applies to foundational training, as you already understood, not to skills, because skills is already a different kind of game. That pretty much wraps things up for today's video. If you want to do it on your own, you have the structure and you have the knowledge. However, if you want my helping hand throughout the journey, just feel free to hit me up on Instagram or book in a call with me directly down below, and we'll take it from there. I really hope you found this video very valuable and interesting, and I wish you an amazing day, brother. See you on the next one. Peace!